Hello everybody, welcome to another video. Today I wanted to show off my GrandisKuwagamon deck, which I've been adjusting and testing, and not only testing but taking the store matches and doing pretty well with it. I think it's reached a point where it's consistently winning and searching for the cards that I need. In addition to that, this came in top 70 in a couple of the regional competitions that I went into with it. And I made a video before already about Grandis, so I wanted to make sure that you guys get a version of the deck which has been more consistent, which has been more tested out, right? So at this point, I've been running 2 Yokos, mainly because the DP increase is still pretty solid, still a good backup plan, but you want the Gummimon's draw power to come out a little bit better. Sometimes you do need, to pick up a 1 card here or there to help you finish off your opponents. So Gummymon and Yokomon, you could probably change these up a little bit as far as the ratio goes, but I like it at 2 and 3. Right now it's proven to be pretty consistent. I run 4 of the Kokuwamon discard searchers. I usually try not to digivolve with this one. I try to play it so I can find more of my pieces. The whole thing with this deck is that you want to find all of the pieces to put together a winning stack that OTKs your opponent. So Kokuwamon is not ideally the one that you want to digivolve on top of your egg. You want to make sure that you play it, even if you hard play it first turn, that's still better than digivolving, picking up 1 card, which may or may not be one that you need. I run 4 Palmons. It is a very real possibility that you may need jamming into security, and it's happened sometimes where I hit something that DP reduces, and I'm still alive, but I need to not die to the next thing I check, and the jamming has been pretty good for that type of situation. Also, if you don't pick up a GrandisKuwagamon and you need to check with GranKuwagamon, having the jamming's not a terrible thing. Take out 3 cards that you cannot die from because of stronger DP, so on and so forth. Still pretty good. I run 3 Terriermons. Terriermons, they're just to block memory, but it's not an important part of the stack, if you will. He's just there to block memory on your opponent if needed. Since a lot of people are dealing with Tamers, since a lot of people are trying to play memory boost, so on and so forth, Terriermon works really well to block all of that and help you seal the game towards the end. I've always had one when I needed one at the end of a game to stop my opponent from burst popping memory. They have to deal with the Terriermon first, and I can go and hit and win the game that way. I also run a regular EX2 Terriermon, mainly because when you suspend you gain 2,000, and that could be useful sometimes. And then also if you play a green tamer, you gain 1 memory. The memory tamers that you play in this deck all cost 4, so it would be nice to get them down for 3 if possible with this Terriermon. But honestly, he's just there to be like a piece to go up towards. You don't really need him. If I grab him, he goes straight on top of my rookie egg. If I have a tamer that I want to bring out, I can think about promoting and then playing it for 3 instead of 4, but that's very situational. Tentomon, I run 2. Sometimes you want to swing and digivolve and not have to pay the memory. That's happened quite a bit of times, and Tentomon has been a pretty good card to deal with that situation, because when you attack, you reduce the Digivolution cost by 1. You can go into Grandis for free if you have a GrandKuwagamon already, or you can go into a GrandKuwagamon for just 2 if you are going to be swinging, for example, with an X Antibody Okuwamon, for example, or any card that has the X Antibody that gains some sort of advantage from it, right? So Tentomon gets you up to a higher level without using as much DP. It hasn't come up that often. It's not super useful, but it's definitely a card that I wish I had in some situations. So Tentomon, only 2 of them, and that's it for our level 3s. Next, our level 4s. I run 4 Weedmon. Weedmon's there because you digiburst, you gain 1 memory. So if you go up to GrandKuwagamon and you digiburst it, you gain that 1 memory so that you can go into GrandisKuwagamon without passing turn, for example. So pretty useful. He also digivolves for 1, which is huge. You want to make sure that you're digivolving for as cheap as possible. Weedmon definitely is a card that you need to run 4 of. You want the memory, you want to digivolve for 1, you want it as a piece that you can drop pretty well. And it only drops for a play cost of 4, which is not that bad if you happen to break for whatever reason. You could still drop it and not be in a terrible position. 3 Stingmons. Stingmon Digivolves for 1. It also gains memory when you destroy a Digimon, which when you're suspending and standing up with the Grandis, for example, can come in handy to gain that 1 memory. It's actually come up many times where I had the Stingmon stacked with the Okuwamon that gains memory when destroying something to gain enough memory to continue my turn and keep attacking or playing something else or searching for pieces, for example. So Stingmon's pretty good. Digivolves for 1. Definitely do not want to hard play this one. Cost is 6 to hard play it, which is pretty bad. So I run 3 of the Stingmon, but 4 of the Weedmon, because you could still hard play Weedmon and not screw yourself over too much. 1 Kabuterimon blocker, Digivolves for 1, and sometimes you just need a blocker, and he is an Insectoid, so sometimes he does trigger a couple of different things that you might want. Overall, I haven't needed blockers too much, but when you do need one, you definitely, it's like usually deep in the game and you'll have drawn this by then. So I run 1 Kabuterimon. 1 MetalKabuterimon. It's nice to Digivolve for 1 on top of another level 4 if needed. It adds sources to your GrandKuwagamon. For example, if you don't have GrandisKuwagamon and you want to make sure that you have more sources, you can stack this along with some of the X antibodies that also give more sources and check for more cards that way. In addition to that, it's also a push to win button. If you Digivolve on top of your green Tamer, just Digivolve for 2, boom, smack, win the game. Classic strategy here. I run 4 of the Okuwamon from BT1. This card does not have a limit on how much memory you gain when Digivolving. I'm sorry, when destroying a Digimon. So you could kill multiple Digimon and gain memory to continue your attack. It also Digivolves for 2, which is pretty cheap. Pretty good card. It's also, of course, an Insectoid, and it can turn into the X Antibody form Okuwamon for free. And with the suspensions that this does, sometimes I actually don't burst the Okuwamon. Sometimes I keep that because it gives me more memory to work with. It all depends on the situations. If I've already swung into my opponent with another Digimon, for example, like a Okuwamon that I use to search for pieces, sometimes it might be good to just keep your sources alive so that when you kill a Digimon, you gain more memory and you can keep winning that way. Because sometimes OTK may not be the way to a victory, but you might need to kill some Digimon along the way, and Okuwamon is a good part of that strategy. Next, I only run 1 of the promo Okuwamon, the one that gives piercing to an Insectoid, and the one that gives, when your opponent becomes suspended, gain 1 memory. I don't think it's that great with the GrandisKuwagamon, to be honest. I know it's a promo, I know it's hard to get and expensive. I like the piercing sometimes. For example, if you have piercing and you're destroying a Digimon, and for example you have Stingmon, you're gaining the memory and you can still check security, that's a pretty good situation. The problem that I've had is that this meta currently has a lot of Digimon that don't die to piercing, whether it's armor or you know, those X Antibody Garurumon or Greymon that keep you from dying. I've had a hard time getting my piercing to go through, but so I run 1. That's enough for me. It's worked pretty well. X Antibody form Okuwamon, I run 4. Even if you don't have a regular Okuwamon first, you can still go into Okuwamon for 3. But if you do happen to have the X Antibody option or a regular Okuwamon, you get to suspend your opponent. You get to target it if you were attacking, and then of course if you Digivolve into an Insectoid, you can reduce that cost by 1. This is a huge card in this deck. You rather run 4. It's an X Antibody form. It suspends your opponent, which can be pretty useful, letting you draw cards or letting you attack into it, pierce it, gain memory. For example, if you have Stingmon and Okuwamon on top of each other, it can be a pretty good combo early on against your opponent. Of course, you would only do that if you don't have GrandKuwagamon in your hand. However, GrandKuwagamon, you run 4, you need this card. This card is the biggest engine of the OTK. If you see yourself for some reason not drawing GrandKuwagamon, which has happened to me, I've had GrandKuwagamons end up in security where I had 3 in security and somehow I milled 1 to the bottom of the deck because I didn't know it at the time. But GrandKuwagamon is a big time card here. You Digiburst to gain security checks. If you have Digiburst like jamming, Weedmon's Digiburst, you get to have gain memory, gain jamming, all of those things. Gain plus 2000 with the Yokomon. All those are good abilities to have. And this card is key, big time. Next, I run 3 GrandisKuwagamon. GrandisKuwagamon is it's of course one of the biggest cards in this deck. But the reason I run 3 is because there are other ways to win. You don't necessarily need GrandisKuwagamon, and the only time I've really lost, like what cost me a store championship, was pretty much that all 3 of these GrandisKuwagamon were in security. I was like, I could have run a 4th, but that means I wouldn't have gotten a lot of the other pieces that I need. And how likely is that to happen? Not very likely. But GrandisKuwagamon Digivolves from 1 of a regular Kuwagamon. It stands back up. You can check multiple security cards with that combo and stand back up. You can check the whole security stack with that combo. It's pretty good. You can also suspend your opponent, which lets you draw. You can suspend your opponent, which lets you attack it. And if you have your Stingmon and or Piercing or Okuwamon, you can gain some benefits from that as well. I like those combos. I think they work pretty well. Grandis is huge. Swings for 16 on your turn, which is awesome. And honestly, 3 has worked really well. I also run 1 Chaosmon because sometimes I just need to kill a Digimon that might end me next turn. And if you've Digibursted Yokomon, you get to swing for 16 as well. And if you are it has Piercing already and it can kill a standing Digimon. So if you have a Okuwamon, you can still gain memory again from destroying another Digimon, all while checking a card if the opponent still happens to have security, and set yourself up to win the next turn, for example. It is a very, very high cost Digimon, so I try not to use it too much. But sometimes it is better to destroy your opponent's Digimon that's posing a threat. For example, if your opponent has their own OTK card that could potentially kill you, or in a mirror match, I like to be able to kill the opponent's Digimon in order to keep them from winning and get myself to win. For example, by going into MetalKabuterimon off my Tamer, which in this case, I run Mimi. I run 3 Mimis. She's just too good. One of the best Tamers in the game. I run 3. That has been enough. 4 would be too many. 3 is enough. I run 1 Cool Boy. Cool Boy hasn't been that great. This might be the one card that I would think would cut if I had to find another card. Maybe another Grandis or maybe another memory boost, for example. But Cool Boy has played his role. He's looked for the X Antibody cards. He looks for GrandisKuwagamon. He looks for Okuwamon, X Antibody. Those are all cards that are key. So this is just another searcher, right? The gain 1, draw 1. Seldomly ever is used. I'd rather have the search. The search is definitely very important. But if you happen to go from Okuwamon into Okuwamon X Antibody, Cool Boy gets you draw 1 plus and gain 1 memory, which could be useful to finish off your opponent, but just doesn't happen often enough for me to run more of the Cool Boys. 2 regular X Antibody, there's just too much benefit from having the X Antibody, including the when attacking Digivolution situation. It's just too good. And then when your opponent hits it off security, you gain 1 memory and it goes to your hand. Literally, this card, if it ends up in security, it still ends up in your hand. This card will eventually make its way to your hand if the duel goes on long enough. And all the benefits from it, you kind of need to run X Antibody. It's also a target for Kokuwamon. Kokuwamon can pick up X Antibody on a search. All of those are great, awesome things. So I run 2 for this deck. Next, I run 3 green memory boost. Honestly, I would run 4, but I think green has been just 3 has been pretty consistent. 4 might be too much search. There's already plenty of search in this deck. And if your opponent blocks memory with the memory blocker, for example, you could be out of luck in that situation. But green memory boost early on, if you have a Kokuwamon and a green memory boost, I definitely recommend digivolving Kokuwamon for the egg. Using the green memory boost, you look up 4 cards, pick up a card that you need, and move on from there. You have yourself a pretty good setup and memory that you can use later on. That's a very good card that you need to run. And last but not least, my 1 spicy tech card, Terra Clusters. You would not believe the times that Terra Clusters has come in clutch. Magnamon X Antibody form, bottom decked, Death Xmon, bottom decked, all of those cards that just pose a threat to you. So, you just bottom deck Terra Cluster, and if you have Grandis, you just suspend your opponent. You can still check security, and you can still bottom deck your opponent. Terra Clusters even on off security bottom decks your opponent. It has come in clutch many times. I'd rather have this over Electroshocker because particularly the armors. If you bottom deck an armor, they won't just put it back down like they would with, for example, another armor deck that keeps from being deleted or that you just sent back to a hand. Okay, so that is the GrandisKuwagamon deck. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any suggestions or anything that you would change about it, let me know and tell me what you think about the deck, and I'll see you in the next video.